The galaxy was on the brink of chaos. For centuries, conflict between the powerful alien factions had raged across the stars. The Great Wars had torn planets apart, and the once thriving civilizations of the galaxy were now shadows of their former selves. In the midst of this destruction, humanity had remained silent, hidden away on Earth, its people forgotten by most of the galaxy. For years, Earth's location had been kept secret, hidden away behind a thick veil of silence. The humans, once known for their curiosity and ambition, had retreated from the galactic stage. No one remembered Earth's true potential, and no one dared to imagine that humans might one day rise again. But the galaxy had underestimated humanity. It was about to find out just how wrong it had been. Deep within the outer reaches of the solar system, a fleet that had been dormant for centuries was about to awaken. These ships, once thought to be myth, had been built long ago, when humanity was at the height of its technological power. They had been designed for one purpose: to protect Earth from any threat, no matter the cost. But after the humans disappeared from the galactic conflict, these ships had been left untouched, their engines cold and their weapons silent. Now, a faint signal, one no one had expected, began to pulse from the heart of the fleet. It was a whisper at first, barely noticeable, but it grew stronger with each passing hour. Deep within Earth's government, a handful of people began to notice the change. It was a signal from the fleet, a sign that the time for hiding was over. But who would be the first to notice? Who would be the one to react? The galaxy's leaders had no idea that humanity's secret fleet was stirring. They were too busy fighting their own battles, too caught up in their endless wars to notice the quiet stirrings of a new power. The alien empires continued to battle for control of the galaxy, each thinking it had the upper hand. The powerful fleets of the Galactic Empire clashed in the depths of space, leaving entire star systems in ruin. It was in this chaos that the fleet's awakening began to unfold. Elena Mitchell, a brilliant strategist and commander, was one of the first to realize what was happening. She had been part of a special program designed to monitor the fleet, but even she had never truly believed the ships would ever awaken. The fleet had been a secret, a backup plan, just in case. But now, as the signal grew louder, Elena felt the weight of its importance. The fleet was no longer just a backup. It was the last hope for humanity. She quickly gathered a team of trusted officers, each one a skilled expert in their field. They were the ones who would lead the fleet when it reawakened, the ones who would have to make the hard decisions. They would have to fight to protect Earth and take back the galaxy from the alien empires who had long ago forgotten what it meant to fear humanity. But as Elena and her team prepared for what was to come, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The fleet had been hidden away for so long. What had changed? Why was it waking up now, when the galaxy was already on the edge of collapse? A sudden, terrifying thought struck Elena. What if the fleet wasn't the only thing waking up? What if the signal had been detected by someone else? What if the galactic powers, who had been ignoring Earth for so long, were about to realize that humanity was not as weak as they had thought? As she looked out at the vast expanse of space, Elena knew one thing for certain: the galaxy was about to change forever. The war that had seemed endless was coming to an end, but the consequences of what was to come would be far greater than anyone could imagine. The fleet was waking up, and with it, the hope of humanity. But in the shadows, something else stirred, a force far greater and more dangerous than anything Earth had ever faced. Elena's heart raced as the first wave of ships began to emerge from the darkness of space. The enemy fleets, scattered across the galaxy, would not know what hit them. For humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows. It was stepping forward, ready to take its place among the stars once again. And with that, the calm before the awakening shattered. The galaxy would never be the same again. The silence that had reigned over the galaxy for so long was shattered by a series of strange, pulsing signals. Across the vast expanse of space, the quiet hum of the stars was interrupted by a faint but unmistakable message. Earth was not as forgotten as everyone had believed. For the alien empires, life had been a constant struggle for dominance. The Galactic Union, a vast and powerful collective of species, had ruled with an iron fist, controlling entire sectors of the galaxy. The wars between the different factions were endless, but Earth, a planet long considered irrelevant, had slipped under the radar. But now, with the sudden awakening of a dormant power, everything was about to change. In a command center far from the heart of the Galactic Union, Fleet Admiral Vranek of the Zorath Empire sat in his observation chair, his eyes narrowed in concentration as the signal from Earth grew stronger. At first, he thought it was a mistake, a glitch in the system, but the patterns were too precise to be random. There was no doubt about it. Something was happening on Earth. Vranek was a seasoned warrior, known for his ruthlessness and his ability to dominate any situation. Yet even he could not shake the growing unease as he studied the data. The signal was coming from the edge of the solar system, closer to Earth than any of the galactic factions had anticipated. He knew that humanity had been hiding for centuries, but this was different. This was no ordinary signal. It felt like a warning. The Zorath Empire had always believed that Earth posed no threat. After all, the humans had been isolated, stuck on their primitive planet with no real means of space travel or military might. They were a relic, a fading memory. But now, as the signal continued to pulse with increasing intensity, Vranek's instincts told him that something had changed. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer weak. They had power. Across the galaxy, other empires began to pick up on the same signal. Each one reacted differently, but none could deny the implications. The quiet and insignificant humans had awoken a force far beyond their previous understanding. Back on Earth, Elena Mitchell was preparing for the worst. She had always known that the fleet would one day be needed, but she never anticipated the kind of response it would provoke. The fleet's activation was not a simple matter. It was a call to arms, a sign that humanity had reclaimed its place in the galaxy. But with that came enemies, and not just the local factions of aliens who had been fighting for control. This signal had attracted the attention of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, those who had ruled for eons. "We've only got one chance at this," Elena said to her team, her voice steady but tinged with the weight of the moment. "We can't afford to hesitate. The galaxy will come for us now, and we have to be ready." Her team, an assortment of the finest soldiers, engineers, and strategists, nodded in agreement. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, but none of them could truly prepare for what was coming. Across the galaxy, in the command centers of the most powerful alien empires, war preparations were already underway. It was as if they all sensed the same thing, that humanity was about to take its first step into a larger world. They would not let that happen without a fight. On the outer rim of the galaxy, far from the conflict that had once defined the universe, a shadowy figure watched the signals with a mixture of curiosity and concern. This figure was an anomaly, even in the complex web of galactic politics. Unlike the empires who had grown too confident in their dominance, this figure understood the true nature of humanity. They knew what humanity was capable of. Elena had no idea who was watching, but she would soon find out. As the fleet's first ships powered up, their engines roaring to life for the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to stir. War was coming, yet no one knew exactly who the true enemy would be. Would it be the long-forgotten human fleet that could turn the tide of history, or would the galaxy's most powerful empires unite to crush humanity's hope before it could fully awaken? The unknowns loomed large as Elena gazed out at the stars. One thing was certain. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before, and they were about to make that mistake again. The fleet, once dormant, was now a symbol of hope and of impending destruction. Humanity had no choice but to rise up and meet its destiny head-on, no matter the cost. And as the ships began to move, slowly at first, but with a growing momentum, a sense of foreboding settled over the galaxy. The storm had only just begun, and no one was ready for what was coming next. The distant hum of the fleet's engines echoed in the silent corridors of Earth's command center. As the ships prepared to leave their hidden docks, Elena Mitchell and her team stood at the helm, their eyes fixed on the screens. The galaxy was on the edge of chaos, and humanity's fleet was at the center of it. No one could predict how the other empires would react, or whether they could even survive what was coming. But one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. Elena had always known this day would come, but standing in the command center, with the weight of the fleet's legacy pressing down on her, it felt surreal. She could hear the soft sounds of technicians and engineers working frantically, but the heavy silence around her was deafening. This wasn't just another battle. It was the beginning of humanity's new chapter in the galaxy. She glanced at the screen showing the fleet's current position, just outside the solar system. The first wave of ships was ready to engage, but there was still a tension in the air, as if everyone was waiting for a signal that would confirm their worst fears. Earth's fleet, a vast and dormant power, was now poised to awaken, and every faction in the galaxy was on high alert. In the far reaches of space, the first signs of interaction began. A Zorath scout ship, the closest to Earth's fleet, picked up the movement. At first, it was a mere blip on their sensors, something small, something that could be ignored. But then the signal grew stronger. There was no mistaking it now. The fleet was real. It was awakening. Captain Krell of the Zorath Empire watched in disbelief as the blip turned into a massive formation of ships. His sensors were working overtime, trying to process the data. There was no way this was happening. Humanity's fleet had been a myth, something to be dismissed by all serious galactic minds. Yet, here it was, emerging from the shadows. "Report to the Emperor." Krell barked to his communications officer, his voice strained with urgency. He knew this was a threat beyond what he had ever prepared for. Earth's fleet was a mystery, but mysteries could not be allowed to live. As Krell's ship sent out a warning to the Zorath Command, other factions began to pick up the signals as well. The Galactic Union, a powerful collective of species that had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, was the first to react. Their military forces, spread thin across hundreds of star systems, now had a new priority: humanity's reemergence. The Galactic Council convened immediately. High-ranking leaders from the Elysians, a race known for their advanced psionic powers, the Drakari, a warlike reptilian species, and the Valdarians, a highly intelligent species of engineers, gathered in the vast meeting chamber. The fate of the galaxy was in their hands, but the implications of Earth's fleet were too great to ignore. "We have underestimated humanity for too long," said Supreme Leader Thorin of the Elysians, his voice carrying a cold edge. "The fleet may be primitive by our standards, but we cannot afford to make the same mistake again. We must act quickly. The humans have been quiet for centuries, hidden in their corner of the galaxy," said Commander Vrax of the Drakari, his sharp teeth gleaming as he spoke. "What could they possibly hope to accomplish with such a fleet? We can crush them before they even leave their system." But Thorin wasn't convinced. They've had time to prepare, and their fleet may be hiding far more than we know. Underestimate them at your peril. The debate raged on, but there was one thing everyone agreed on: the time for inaction had passed. The galaxy would not wait for them to figure out humanity's next move. It was time to act, and it was time to do so with overwhelming force. Back on Earth, Elena was receiving reports of the growing tensions. She didn't need to be told that the galaxy was reacting to humanity's fleet. She had known that the moment they powered up the first ships, the entire galaxy would take notice. The question was whether humanity could stand its ground. "I want every fleet commander in the system ready for any kind of engagement," Elena ordered, her voice steady, betraying none of the nervousness she felt inside. "We won't provoke the galactic factions, but if they make the first move, we won't hesitate." As the hours passed, the fleet continued its slow journey into the unknown, its presence a growing shadow over the galaxy. Elena had always believed in humanity's potential, but this was different. This was no longer just about Earth. This was about reclaiming humanity's place in a galaxy that had once forgotten them. The silence between the fleets was deafening. No one dared make the first move. But as the ships of the Galactic Union and other factions closed in on Earth's position, the tension became unbearable. Then, without warning, a single ship from the Galactic Union's fleet made its move. It was a small scout vessel, probably sent to test the waters. But its actions spoke louder than any words. It fired a warning shot across the fleet's path, its energy blast crackling through space. The message was clear. Earth's fleet was no longer welcome in the galaxy. Alina's eyes widened as the shot rang out. The moment she had feared had arrived. Humanity was now officially in the crosshairs of the galaxy's greatest powers. "Prepare for battle," she said quietly, her fingers gripping the armrests of her command chair. "We're not backing down." The first strike had been made, and the galaxy was on the brink of war. But this time, humanity wasn't going to be an afterthought. They were going to fight for their place among the stars. The real conflict had only just begun. The atmosphere in Earth's command center was thick with tension. Alina Mitchell stood before the massive screen displaying the position of every ship in the fleet. The scouts had already been dispatched, and reports were flooding in. The Galactic Union had made its first move, launching a warning shot at Earth's fleet. But it wasn't just a single warning shot. It was a signal. The galaxy had noticed humanity, and they weren't happy about it. "Captain, the enemy fleet is closing in." A voice broke through Alina's thoughts. It was Lieutenant Maria Lynn, her voice tense but steady as always. "Their flagship is approaching the outer rim of our formation. They appear ready to engage." Alina turned to face her team, her expression hardening. "All ships prepare for battle. If they want to fight, they're going to get one. But remember, our goal is not to destroy. We don't want to ignite a galactic war unless we have no choice." She felt the weight of those words. Humanity was barely prepared for a galactic conflict. Despite the size and firepower of the secret fleet, they were still outnumbered, outgunned. But what they had was an advantage: the unknown. The rest of the galaxy had no idea what Earth's fleet was capable of, and that made them dangerous. The command center erupted into motion. Officers scrambled to their stations, preparing systems, calibrating weapons, and ensuring that all communications were functioning. Alina's eyes darted over the vast display of ship positions, each one marked in red or green depending on whether it was hostile or friendly. "Captain, the Galactic Union's fleet is hailing us," Maria said, her voice strained. "They've sent a message directly to us." Alina nodded. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing the stern face of General Thrax, the Galactic Union's commanding officer. His reptilian features were cold, his yellow eyes unblinking. His voice, when it came, was low and authoritative. "Humanity," he said with a sneer, "you have made a grave mistake. Your fleet should never have awakened. You are no longer welcome in this galaxy. Stand down, or we will be forced to neutralize you." Alina met his gaze, unflinching. She could feel the anger building within her, but she knew she had to remain calm. The fate of Earth rested on her next words. "General Thrax," she said, her voice steady but firm, "you don't understand what you're dealing with. We did not awaken this fleet to fight. But if you push us, we will defend ourselves. We are not your enemies, but we will not be intimidated." The silence that followed hung heavy. Thrax's expression remained unreadable, but there was a flicker in his eyes, something that might have been doubt. He was not used to being challenged. "You have been warned, Earth," Thrax said, his voice like ice. "Prepare for the consequences." The transmission ended abruptly, and the room went silent. Alina stood motionless for a moment, the weight of what had just transpired sinking in. She had done it. She had made her stance clear. There was no going back now. "All ships prepare to engage," Alina ordered, her voice resolute. "We are not backing down." Suddenly, the command center was filled with a new sense of urgency. The fleet's engines hummed louder as they powered up, weapons systems primed and ready. Across the vast expanse of space, Earth's ships began to align, their formation a testament to humanity's strength and unity. The entire fleet was a hidden giant, waiting for the moment to strike. The first shots were fired from the Galactic Union's flagship, bright flashes of energy cutting through the void. Elena watched as the blasts barely missed the edge of their formation, signaling the beginning of the conflict. But Earth's fleet didn't retaliate immediately. They held their ground, each ship waiting for the precise moment to unleash their full might. "We're not the aggressors here," Elena muttered under her breath, "but they will understand soon enough." As if on cue, the fleet's weapon systems lit up, each ship responding in kind to the Union's aggression. The first round of fire from Earth's fleet was calculated, precise, designed to incapacitate rather than destroy. The Union ships faltered, their shields absorbing the blows, but it was clear, humanity's fleet was no joke. The Galactica, Earth's flagship, fired its first salvo. A massive energy blast streaked across space, hitting a Union destroyer. The ship shuddered under the impact, but its defenses held. The Union fleet began to regroup, aware now that Earth's ships weren't simply relics from the past. They were advanced, dangerous, and determined. "Captain, the Valdarians are mobilizing their fleet. They're coming to assist the Galactic Union," Maria said, her eyes scanning the data. "They'll be here in minutes." "Then we'll be ready for them," Elena said, her jaw set. "Humanity has waited for too long to be underestimated again. We fight for our future now, and we fight to win." The seconds stretched into what felt like hours as the tension in the command center mounted. It was only a matter of time before the conflict escalated further. The war that had been dormant for so long was now fully awake, and Earth was at its heart. Elena stood tall, her hands gripping the edge of the table. The next few moments would decide the fate of humanity, but she had never been more certain of their strength. They had no choice now. They had to stand and fight for the future of their species. Outside the fleet, the stars flickered, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. And then, without warning, the next round of fire began. The battle for Earth's place in the galaxy had begun, and there was no turning back. The stars around Earth's fleet seemed to shine even brighter as the battle unfolded in the cold expanse of space. The Galactic Union had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price for it. Elena Mitchell's fingers hovered over the controls, watching her fleet's ships exchange fire with the enemies from across the galaxy. It had only been hours since the first strike, but the tide was already shifting. Humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows. They were fighting back. "Captain, the Valdarians have entered the fray." Maria Lynn's voice rang out in the tense atmosphere. "They're bringing in reinforcements. We've got a whole new fleet coming at us." Elena nodded. It wasn't unexpected. The Galactic Union had the backing of the Valdarians, a powerful race that was known for their ruthless military tactics. But Earth had an advantage, the element of surprise. "Hold steady," Elena ordered, her voice cool but filled with the resolve of someone who had seen humanity's potential up close. "We have the upper hand. Just give them a moment." Across the fleet, Earth's ships maneuvered with precision. Their ancient technology, once thought obsolete, hummed with newfound power. The reawakening of humanity's hidden fleet had brought with it not just firepower, but a unity of purpose. Every ship, every officer, every soldier knew what was at stake. The Valdarians' fleet was massive, their ships built for speed and devastation. But the Earth fleet had something the Union and their allies couldn't have predicted: a deep, almost primal understanding of warfare. Their strategy wasn't just about brute force. It was about thinking several steps ahead. And they had an edge the Union didn't. Humanity had fought wars for millennia, and every battle had taught them something new. As the Valdarians closed in, their ships blasted through the void, their weapons crackling with energy. The first salvo hit one of Earth's outermost ships, but it didn't break through the hull. Instead, the ship absorbed the energy, redirecting it back toward the attacking fleet. "Captain, they're using our own weapons against us," one of the technicians said, his voice filled with astonishment. "They've adapted to our tech." Elena's mind raced. The Valdarians had intelligence, no doubt. But this wasn't a simple adaptation. They were anticipating humanity's moves. "We can't let them get inside our defense perimeter," Elena muttered. "Switch to evasive tactics. We need to make them chase us." The command center exploded into activity as the fleet adjusted its formation, ships veering off in unpredictable directions. Earth's fleet wasn't just reacting anymore. They were dictating the pace of the battle. "Enemy ships closing in," Maria warned. "They're breaking through our outer perimeter." Elena's heart raced. This was it, the moment of truth. But just as the Valdarians prepared to strike, a massive energy burst erupted from the Galactica, Earth's flagship. It was unlike anything the Union or Valdarians had seen before, a cascade of energy that seemed to ripple across space itself. The energy waves spread out, hitting several enemy ships in an instant. The Valdarians staggered, their ships shuddering as their shields flickered. What just happened?" Maria gasped. Elena didn't answer. She was watching the data on the screen. The Galactica had unleashed its secret weapon, something humanity had kept hidden for centuries. It wasn't just powerful, it was overwhelming. One by one, the ships in the Valdarian fleet faltered. Their shields couldn't withstand the sheer force of the energy pulse. Some ships broke apart entirely, their hulls disintegrating into cosmic dust. Others simply drifted, dead in the water. The Union and Valdarian fleets had been thrown off balance, their forces in disarray. Elena saw the opportunity and seized it. "All ships, converge on the enemy flagship," she ordered. "Take them down." The fleet responded as one, their movements synchronized. The Union's flagship, still recovering from the energy blast, found itself surrounded. For the first time, the enemy was on the defensive. Elena's eyes never left the screen. It's time for them to realize who they're dealing with. The Galactica and the rest of Earth's fleet closed in, their weapons charged and ready. The first wave of fire struck the Union flagship, and Elena could see the desperation in the faces of the enemy officers as they tried to regroup. But it was too late. Earth's fleet had already found its rhythm. In the cold expanse of space, the once feared Galactic Union and its allies were now fighting a battle they hadn't prepared for. Earth's fleet wasn't just defending its home. It was sending a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity would not be bullied, and no force in the universe could keep them from standing tall. The energy pulses continued, each shot landing with perfect precision, disabling one ship after another. The Galactic Union flagship, now crippled, was left vulnerable, its shields flickering as it struggled to stay in the fight. And then, with one final, massive burst of energy, the flagship's systems overloaded. It exploded in a brilliant flash of light, sending shockwaves through the surrounding ships. The remaining Union and Valdarian fleets began to retreat, their formation breaking apart as they scrambled to escape the overwhelming power of Earth's hidden fleet. Elena watched in silence, her breath steady, but her mind racing. It was over for now. But she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had been reminded of humanity's strength, and there would be no forgetting it. The balance of power had shifted, and Earth had claimed its place in the universe. But what would the galaxy's response be? How long before the true consequences of this conflict began to unfold? The suspense was unbearable, and Elena knew that the road ahead would not be easy. But for now, Earth had won. The fleets had been repelled, and the war had come to an unexpected end. But would it stay that way? The galaxy was still recovering from the shockwave of the events surrounding Earth's hidden fleet. The once dominant Galactic Union had suffered a devastating blow, its forces scattered and in disarray. But the consequences of the battle were not confined to the battlefields. Across the stars, leaders of the Galactic Council were meeting in secret, their faces grim and full of uncertainty. In a massive council chamber, lit by the cold light of distant stars, The representatives of hundreds of worlds sat around a gleaming table. The room was filled with whispers, each voice carrying the weight of fear, doubt, and a new realization. Humanity had awakened. "We have underestimated them," said Lord Rivik, a tall, broad-shouldered representative of the Krathorian species. His voice was filled with a deep, lingering anger. "This Earth, they have something we do not understand. We need to act now before they gain any more power." "Their fleet was hidden for centuries," replied Ambassador Thal, a quiet and calculated figure from the Shiralian Alliance. "They must have been preparing for this moment all along. This wasn't an accident. Humanity has a plan, and we were blind to it." The chamber was silent as the reality of the situation set in. The Galactica, humanity's flagship, had decimated the most advanced fleets the galaxy had ever seen in just a matter of hours. Ships that once struck fear into the hearts of many were now drifting lifeless in the void, destroyed or retreating in chaos. And Earth wasn't done yet. "We cannot let them rise unchallenged," Lord Rivik continued, his eyes narrowing. "If they are allowed to regroup, they will become an unstoppable force. We must form an alliance and destroy them before they can grow stronger." Ambassador Thal spoke again, his voice calm but stern. "But we cannot ignore what just happened. Earth's fleet is more advanced than we ever imagined. They caught us off guard. If we move too quickly, we risk uniting them against us. They are not like the others. They are different." "What do you propose then, Thal?" Lord Rivik snapped, his patience thinning. "Do we wait until they are ready to strike again? Do we watch as they build their power, until it is too late?" Thal stood up, pacing slowly, deep in thought. "We need to gather intelligence. We need to understand how they fight, what they want, and where they stand. We need to learn more about their ancient technology, find a way to counter it." "You want to study them?" Rivik scoffed. "While they tear through our fleets and destroy everything in their path." "Yes," Thal responded firmly. "We are not facing an ordinary race. Humanity is not just another species in the galaxy. We've seen it firsthand now. These humans are resourceful, inventive, and unpredictable. We must adapt, or we will fall." The council room fell into an uncomfortable silence as the representatives considered his words. The challenge that Earth posed wasn't just about military might. It was about a different kind of warfare. One that focused on outthinking opponents, anticipating their every move, and turning the tables with ingenuity. Humanity was playing a game the galaxy had never seen before, and it was winning. The Shiralian ambassador's words hung in the air. The galaxy's leadership had never faced a threat like this. The idea of fighting an opponent who could think faster, adapt quicker, and strike harder was terrifying. And yet, they knew that retreating into inaction was not an option. "We need to form a coalition," said Thal, a new, steely determination in his voice. "We must unite the galaxy's strongest powers, those who still stand after the battle, and prepare for what's coming. If we don't, Earth will outpace us all." Lord Rivik looked at the others in the chamber, his face hardening. "The Krathorians will stand with you," he said, his voice cold. "The rest of you need to decide quickly. Humanity must be stopped before they become more powerful than we can handle." The room buzzed with murmurs as the council members exchanged looks. Thal's words had struck a chord, but forming a coalition wouldn't be easy. Old rivalries, mistrust, and the scars of previous wars ran deep. But this was different. The stakes were higher now. As the galaxy trembled from the ripples of humanity's awakening, Earth's fleet continued its calculated and deliberate movements, seemingly watching and waiting. From the deepest corners of space to the high councils of the Galactic Union, every faction, every species, was now paying attention to the power that had emerged from the shadows. The war was over, but a new type of conflict had begun, one that no one had seen coming. On Earth, in the heart of the command center beneath the surface of an ancient mountain, Admiral Saren stood before a large glowing map of the galaxy, Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, adjusting the information as she watched every fleet move, every minor detail unfolding in the cosmos. The long-hidden fleet, once thought to be a myth, was now fully operational, silent, powerful, and ready to act. The Admiral wasn't alone. Around her, military experts, scientists, and strategists were huddled in intense discussions, working together to figure out what the next steps would be. The fleet was not just a force. It was a symbol, a warning to the galaxy that humanity was no longer to be underestimated. "Admiral," said Captain Ran, one of the senior officers, his voice steady but filled with concern, "we've initiated the protocol to monitor the Council's every move. But what happens next? Will we just wait for them to come to us?" Saren turned to him, her eyes cold and sharp, a hint of a smile on her lips. "We don't wait. Humanity never waits. We make our own path." The entire room grew still as those words settled into the air. For centuries, humans had been the quiet underdogs, the species that others overlooked or disregarded. Now they were on the precipice of something far greater. The fleet wasn't just about military dominance. It was a statement, a message that the galaxy could no longer ignore. "We've had the advantage," Saren continued, her voice growing more resolute. "But the real power lies in how we use it. We didn't just awaken to fight. We awakened to lead." Around the room, murmurs of approval rippled through the ranks. Earth had never been one to sit on the sidelines. From the very beginning, humanity had fought for survival, for progress, and for the freedom to define its future. Now, with their fleet at their disposal, they had the means to not only protect their world, but to shape the galaxy in their image. "Is it time to reveal our full hand?" Captain Ran asked, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Saren's gaze hardened. "Not yet. We show them just enough to keep them on edge. The galaxy needs to know we are a force to be reckoned with, but they aren't ready to see everything. Let them keep guessing. Let them wonder." Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was struggling to cope with the new threat humanity posed. There was talk of alliances being formed, of troops being mobilized, and of strategies being devised to counter Earth's surprise return. But as much as they tried to move, to prepare, they were always one step behind. Humanity had mastered the art of surprise, and now, it seemed, the universe was reeling from the shockwaves. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, whispers grew louder. Some said that Earth's fleet had access to technologies that defied explanation. Others spoke of a weapon that could end a war in a matter of moments, an ability that could change the balance of power forever. But what was true? No one knew for sure. The mystery of Earth's fleet, and the secret it held, was far from over. As time passed, the galaxy slowly began to realize that Earth was no longer just a planet to be ignored. The quiet world with a history of struggle and survival was now the master of its fate, and possibly the galaxy's. What Earth would do next was unknown, but one thing was clear: they had the power to change everything. They had the power to lead or destroy. Back in the command center, Admiral Saren stood tall, looking out at the map of the galaxy. The stars seemed to flicker with new life, with new possibilities. The power of humanity had just begun to unfold, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. "Let them fear us," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the technology around her. "Let them understand what happens when humanity is finally set free." As the lights of Earth's hidden fleet glowed in the vastness of space, the galaxy held its breath. The future of the universe was uncertain, but one truth was undeniable: Earth had awakened, and the game was far from over.